All right, class. So here's a little lecture that will help you a little bit. Some key ideas. I will be going over vocabulary. There's a little bit of announcements, and then I will pause so you have some time to work on the practice quiz question. And roughly 15-20 minutes left in class, I'll start another screencast, record, going over the practice quiz question so that you have it for your reference. Okay. So first off, a couple of announcements. There is a quiz Friday, and I still got to think about it. So I think you'll just walk in. You won't need a computer. You're welcome to study on your other kinds of devices. And then we'll start pretty promptly, so try to get here on time. But if you're a little late, no biggie, then you'll just stay back a little bit during class. If you turn in your quiz early and you want to work on your programs or submit your reflection, then I'll open the cart and you come on this side of the room, do your thing, and then check out or grab a Chromebook and then sit out in the hallway while everyone else is taking the test in here. Okay. So that's the quiz. Some logistics. Friday or next Friday, there is the MissionBit application that's due. If you want to partake in free coding classes at a nearby high school, sign up for this. Girls Who Code, I'm working with the club team, the officers on organizing our first meeting and what to cover, so more announcements on that. You should know that the Electrical Engineering and Computer Science Club, EECS, is having another information meeting this Friday in room 332, and that's down the hall over there. All I do when I sponsor the club is I open the doors and then I peace out because I'm a cross-country coach this year. Join cross-country and track, okay? More fun times. Clarifying question? No? Yeah, cross-country team, yeah. I'm one of the coaches. So you'll see me running around every so often, breaking my back at my old age, right? Okay. All right, so there's a poster. Notice the high school, there might be one close to you. They're cool classes. It being free, it's a great skill to have, and you definitely go above and beyond what I teach you here. And I believe they're beginner friendly, but their pacing may be a bit faster. You will meet for 2 hours a week or so. So chill out for a little bit, okay? All right, so some things you should know. There is 1 or 2 questions, true and false, about these kinds of topics on your quiz. So here's the difference between computer and hardware. So what you're writing right now, code, that counts as software. The hardware is your computer, okay? So the cover, if you want to use a book analogy, this comes from Mr. Simon, it's like the covers and pages of the books versus the software, that's the story and language of the book. You have to communicate that in a certain way so that someone understands, in this case, the computer. And we call them projects. They're all little programs that are being run on the computer to create some kind of thing in a particular language, whether that's blocks, whether that's lines of text. It's something that the computer will understand. So far we've been using Code.org's Game Lab. Later you're going to move into another tool called CodePen, in which case we're going to be writing JavaScript code, and the specific JavaScript library we'll be using is called p5.js. But we'll come to that either tomorrow or Thursday. And you're beginning to notice that computer languages are really special. So right now with Game Lab, the typing is done for you. But once we move to a purely text-based language, when you have to type, you'll notice that spelling matters, capitalization matters, and some every so often punctuation, like parentheses or squiggly brackets, will throw off the computer. And this level of detail, computers need it because they can only interpret things one way. They're not like a human brain just yet where they can interpret and read between the lines. There is low-level computer code thinking about how hardware works and how the circuitry works. Know that there's a signal that's sent. It's either on or off, and then eventually it makes the way to display that circle up on your screen. This is stuff that you will study kind of more so in principles because you're tested on it, less so in my class. Just be aware there's difference between hardware and software and the different parts of the computer. You should know that over here, for a computer language, block-based language like Code.org, Game Lab, we are using a high-level language. It abstracts or hides some of the detail from you so that you just get the objective. I just want to make a circle. So grab the ellipse block, fill in some numbers, you're good. And where do I start mentioning a compiler? Okay, so like, you notice each time you click the run or reset button, your code is being run. Some languages, like C++, Java, there's another step between there. You have to compile the language. So the compiler for like a language translates that to a bunch of ones and zeros, which makes sense to your computer. You give it a block, you give it a line of code like ellipse, you click run and or reset, it talks to the compiler, and the compiler translates that to zeros and ones, passes that to the computer understands zeros and ones, and then you get a little circle on the screen. That's, in a nutshell, that kind of like process chain. And there's a bunch of other languages out there. Scheme, it's old now. Fortran's ancient. I happen to learn it. It impresses the old programmers of the world. It's like, you know Fortran? Like, yeah, I do. I was a loser. Or I studied atmospheric science at some point, and they have ancient code bases, like think NASA, but looking at computational models to like predict the next hurricane, or like however the weather's gonna be like. Yeah, they use Fortran still. They can't lose like all that ancient code. Okay. There is a couple of slides that I want to emphasize because you're going to see me using this vocabulary more and more, and that's this arguments idea, okay? Arguments are these numbers. Think about those as your inputs to your functions. And there is an order to it, because like by now you should know that the first 2 points control the x, y coordinates of an ellipse. You know that the next 2 points control width and height. That will be on your quiz. And I want to show you real fast, sometimes there are optional arguments. So where's my game lab? So notice that for an ellipse, and like these kinds of subtleties you will pick up on, like an ellipse, you can just generate a circle using 3 arguments. So I'm going to bring up my Sauron eye. And notice right here, if I want a circle, notice that I can just drag over like ellipse and just give it 3 things. By default, GameLab kind of gives you 4 arguments, right? That gives you 4 numbers. But you notice this little arrow over here? You likely will have used this to do more complicated shapes, giving yourselves like more points to help you draw your shape, right? You would have expanded this arrow going like this way. Notice here, this code right here, let's make it like 100, generates this gray circle right here. So really the 4th argument is optional. If you want to make it like a very specific kind of oval, you need that. But if you didn't have it there, the computer just kind of assumes, the width and height are the same. So now you have x, y, and now this is the radius of like your circle. So, and if you are unsure about how that works, look at the documentation. It should tell you somewhere along the ways, is this required? Is this not? Okay, there are optional arguments to blocks. And I wonder, right now, like one of the fills, I'll show you another example of it. Where's my fill? Stroke. Okay, let me show you another one. So with color is very complex. If I fill this one with yellow, this may not work in GameLab. Yeah, it probably doesn't. So later on when we move to CodePen, you'll notice transparency and kind of like the see-throughness. That's another optional argument. If you wanted like to mix colors or have them fade a little bit, you would make use of like this optional argument called like transparency or opacity or something like that. Arguments will appear on your quiz. You should know that it means the numbers or the inputs to a function or a block. Questions? Comments? Nope. All right, so keep using the documentation. Remember, comments are there to help you organize your code. You will have to submit a paragraph for your national flag that's due Friday. Preferably that's a comment. You can also do that in your code or as a private comment on Google Classroom. I accept both. I just need to see a little paragraph writing about that flag, okay? All right, so that is the end of this first part. Please take a look at the practice quiz question, and then I'll review that in like 15 or so minutes. But I wanted to give everyone an opportunity to think about it.